Good morning, and thank you for showing up for your learning. We are looking at lots of complete the square examples through Delta Math, and I'll show you how to complete the Delta Math questions. I've also added two other applications, another application of completing the square. We can use this to solve equations as well when we have quadratic is equal to 0. And so I'll show you how to use completing the square for that as well and be successful in all the Delta Math. This is a challenging algebra topic. So if you have some confusion now, work through the method step by step, and hopefully after several examples, the confusion will start to dissipate and you will feel confident. And it's also important to know how to check your answers. So I would graph both my vertex form of the parabola and the given standard form and compare them in Desmos and see if they're indeed equivalent. If they're equivalent, then you have not made any mistakes. So what are we doing with complete the square? Well, the main thing is when we have quadratics that are in standard form, that can tell us the y-intercept from C. So I could graph my y-intercept at 0, C. It also tells me the slope when it's crossing the y-axis, but that's a little bit abstract and hard to imagine. And then A is the stretch factor. So it tells me if it's opening upwards or downwards and how stretchy it is. But when I have the quadratic, if I can convert that to A multiplied by x minus h all squared plus k, then I know h and k is the location of the vertex. That's valuable information if I want to create a sketch. And it's also the maximum or the minimum value of the parabola, which is often, if I'm looking at applications questions, it's like the highest point of a bridge or the highest point that a ball will travel or the lowest point that, the lowest point of a value that's going down. And it could be the maximum profit would be another spot that might be interesting in business. So we want that information. So we want this technique. So let's take a look at the Delta Math and how you can go ahead and work on it. The first thing is standard to vertex form type 1. So I'll do one of these questions. I'm just going to go new problem, new problem, new problem. All right, I like the look of that one. So I want to rewrite this in vertex form. So the first thing I do is copy out the question. And here we are. Here's the question copied out. So the first thing that I'm going to do is look and see if I have an A that needs to be factored out. In this case, I do not. So that's nice, isn't it? That makes it easier. So I'm just going to take a look at that. So 10, and I'm going to take half of it and square it. Now this step gives me 5 squared, gives me 25. That's a little bit of a trick that I can use to create a perfect square trinomial for these two. They need one dance partner to create a perfect square trinomial, and that's their dance partner. So then I have y is equal to x squared plus 10x plus 25 minus 25 minus 8. Notice I added it and subtracted it. So I did not change it. I just added 0. Now I can recognize that this part here is a perfect square. So y is equal to x plus 5 squared. We'll recreate that. And then I have minus 25 minus 8. So that would be minus 33. And then that will be an answer that I can input into Delta Math. So that's completing the square finished. How do I know what to put in there? It actually shows up right there when you do this work. That number, you put it in there, and that creates your perfect square trinomial. Okay? If you want to check this in Desmos first, I'll show you what that looks like. So here I've graphed both of them in Desmos, and you'll notice I don't have to write y equals. I just learned this recently. You don't have to write y equals, and you can just graph the function. Okay, so when I toggle that, notice that they're the same thing. Okay, so I'm confident that this is the right answer. I'm just going to copy it from here, copy, and then see if I can paste into Delta Math. Boop. Oh, I can. That's very cool. All right, but if you're wondering how do I input this to, you can go over here to the keyboard, and it gives you squareds, and it gives you all of the stuff in the keyboard there. So that's how you do that. Then I'm going to say submit answer. Do you sure I want to submit that answer? Yes. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. So it says, I want to know B. Okay, B is 10. So they read that off. Determine B over 2 is 5. And then they want you to square it. It's 25. Same steps we did. Add and subtract that. So I add it and I subtract it. I recognize the perfect square trinomial as a perfect square binomial. That's weird language. I've never heard perfect square binomial. It's a binomial squared. That's a perfect square trinomial. I'm not sure why they're saying that. And then so I write it this way, and then I write it that way, and then there's my solution. So that's how you do it. Okay, so let's take a look at one of the more challenging ones, which are level 2, standard to vertex form type 2. And let's go get a problem we like here. Okay, let's do this one. All right, so first step is to copy out the question. So here's our question here. And my first step is recognize B is that. These examples don't have any A's, so we're not worried about that yet, but the textbook questions will. So there I will have y is equal to x squared plus 20x, and then I need a dance partner for my 20x, and I get that by doing this. 20 divided by 2 squared equals 10 squared equals 100. So I'm going to add 100 and subtract 100 and then add 36. Cool. This here, there's my perfect square trinomial. It's y is equal to x plus 10 all squared minus 100 plus 36. Well, that's minus 64. Minus 64. 64. And now I'm just going to be so confident that I'm going to throw that into delta math and see if I'm right. All right, so vertex form is going to be equal to y is equal to bracket x plus 10 end bracket, and then I want the squared. So I go to, where's my keyboard little button there? There. So you do a shift 6, and then that gets you your 2. And then I have here minus 64. There. Now what's the vertex? Well, the vertex would be negative 10, because I have to flip this sign. I don't flip that sign though. Negative 64. Submit answer. Yes. I'm right. Okay, so that's cool. I didn't have to graph it in Desmos. You can just check your answers by submitting them. If you want to make sure it's right, then you can do that in Desmos. Now let's take a look at the other two question types that we have. Complete the square, rational only. So I want to be able to solve this equation for 0 using complete the square. Notice I could use the quadratic formula, but instead I'm going to use complete the square. So the first step is going to be the same thing, and I'm going to copy out my equation. So when I write this one out, I want to make sure this is equal to 0. This is not a function. There's one variable, one equation, there is a solution. But actually, because of this x squared, there's multiple solutions, and it can be hard to find them. I can use the quadratic formula, but I can also do these by completing the square. So let's do that. To do this, I'm going to focus on this part, and I'm going to try and create a perfect square trinomial. So there I'm working with this minus 14. So I want to take minus 14, half of it, square it is negative 7 squared. I have to have brackets there, is 49. Okay, so I'm going to add 49 and subtract 49. So I'm going to have x squared minus 14x plus 49 minus 49 plus 45. Okay, so now this part here is a perfect square. What is it? X minus 7 squared. Minus 49 plus 45, this was equal to 0. This is minus 4 equals 0. Now, I want to isolate my x. I'm going to do that by moving this 4 over. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And then I get x minus 7 squared equals 4. Okay. Now, I can take the square root of both sides here. But when I do that, I have to remember that there's a plus minus there, because plus or minus 2 is the square root of 4. Negative 2 is also squared, becomes 4. So I want both of those values. So then when I take the square root of x minus 7 squared, that just gives me x minus 7 equals plus or minus 2. All right. Now, move this 7 to the other side. Add 7 to both sides. And then I have x is equal to 7 plus 2 or 7 minus 2. So x is equal to 9 or 5. And I would usually list those 5 or 9. I would usually list smallest to largest, but today I didn't. Okay, and so now let's check my answer in Desmos. in delta math. Answer. And then here you go 5, comma, and notice how it gives you the chance to put in 2. Submit answer. Yes? Correct. Okay, so first thing it says, they like to move the constant term to the right. I say, who cares? I like to do it on this side. Then add the constant. So they want b squared over 2. So I add that to both. They add it to both sides. I added it and subtracted it on one side. You'll notice that that's the same thing. I could minus 49 from both sides and recreate my line. They had this is equal to 4. I had the same thing. I had x minus 7 times x minus 7 squared. Square root both sides is x minus 7 is equal to plus or minus 2. Because plus 2 also squares to 4, minus 2 also squares to 4. So they both do that. Solve for x, add 7 to both sides. X is 9 or x is 5. X equals 9 or 5. Your solution 5 or 9. Okay, cool. So that's how you do those. Let's look at the hardest examples that we have today, which are complete the square, where a is not 1. So this one actually is not that bad. First step, again, write out both sides. So here I have the question written out, and I've been asked to find the value of x that makes this true. It's not at all easy to do that here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I notice I can just divide away by 2. And I can, if I divide both sides by 2, this becomes a lot simpler. I might even be able to solve it in my head. This is going to be equal to x squared. So x some number squared plus 4 is equal to negative 4 times that number. All right. Now, if I move this to this side, I get a more familiar look. So I'm going to do that. I like working on it this way. I'll notice delta math moves the constant over there. But I'm going to add 4x to both sides so I get everything on one side. I like doing it this way. It's more similar to what I do when I'm completing the square to find vertex form. That's why I like my way. X squared plus 4x, there's my b, plus 4 is equal to 0. Now I'm looking for 4 divided by 2 squared equals 2 squared equals 4. All right? So now I'm going to add and subtract 4 from this. So I have x squared plus 4x plus 4 minus 4, and then I still have this plus 4. That's going to disappear. It's going to be nice. It's going to go to 0. Okay? So now this is 0. I have nothing that I need to move over. And so I have, I'm just going to rewrite now, x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 0. All right, I just did that step, just adding an extra step. I recognize that this is a perfect square trinomial. It is x plus 2 squared equals 0. So if that equals 0, then this must be 0, so x is 2. And x is only 2. There's only going to be one option because I have plus or minus 0 over here. When I take the square root of both sides, I have that x plus 2 equals plus or minus 0. Plus or minus 0 is the same thing as, plus 0 is the same thing as minus 0. So I have here x is equal to negative 2. I think I said earlier x is 2. That was a sign error. X is negative 2. Okay, so now I input that into delta math and see if my answer is correct. Minus 2. So that answer. You're sure? Yes. No. What? So let's see where I made my mistake. Let's find my mistake. So they divided by 2. Great. They moved that term to the left. Great. They had this. I didn't divide this 4 by 2. I didn't divide 4 by 2. Oh my goodness. There's my mistake. I had this is still 4. It's 2. Okay. So now let's see. X squared plus 4x plus 2. So then they minus 2 from both sides. Cool. And then they have this. And then they did that. And they found x squared is equal to 2. All right. So now they have a 2 over there. So it's plus or minus root 2. So it's going to be negative 2 plus or minus root 2. Negative 2 plus or minus root 2. Yes. X is equal to that. Yeah, so there's my mistake. My mistake was making that into a 0. So even I will make mistakes sometimes. So let me point out my mistake on my work. Here we go. Notice that I divided both sides of the equation by 2, but I failed to divide that term by 2. That was my mistake. That should be a 2. That will mean that this does not cancel out. I have minus 4 plus 2, so that would be negative 2. So then I would still have a negative 2 over here that would want to travel over there, become positive 2. And then when I take the square root of both sides, I'd be taking the square root of 2, which would give me plus or minus the root 2. So mine would have this would have multiple solutions then. So that would be going through and finding my error and learning from my mistake. What mistake did I make? Rushing at this step, dividing that one by 2, but not that one. Okay, so be careful with those. So those are all the different types of questions that you'll have in your Delta Math. And I hope seeing an example of each is useful to everyone. Bye for now.